back. But maximum of them are actually absorbed. And actually in this greenhouse effect, what happens, the solar radiation which enter the Earth's atmosphere, they radiate the heat radiation which does not go through the atmospheric layers, and it results in increase in the temperature, which is actually called global warming. So because of these greenhouse gases, when the temperature of the Earth atmosphere increases, it is known as global warming. So we can see in this slide that the radiations coming onto the Earth, they are absorbed, and some solar radiation is reflected by the Earth in the atmosphere, and about half the solar radiation is absorbed by the Earth's surface and it warms. So it is a natural phenomena and it is required. This phenomena is required for the normal life processes to carry on. So, but when these gases increases in the atmosphere, जब in gases का concentration, जो greenhouse gases कहलाती हैं, उन gases का concentration अगर atmosphere में बढ़ जाए, then what will happen? Then this results in the increase in the temperature of the lower layers of the atmosphere, right? So it causes overall increase in the temperature, and that is what is called this global warming. So we can see this is a natural greenhouse effect in this first picture, and the second picture you can see that due to the human enhanced activities, human activities or anthropogenic activities, there is an increase in the greenhouse gases in the lower layers of the atmosphere, and what it causes increases in the temperature. Okay, and this results in the greenhouse gases. Sorry, this results in the global warming, overall increase in the temperature. So more than half of the solar energy reaching the Earth is absorbed by the Earth's surface, and rest of the heat is radiated back to the atmosphere. So these greenhouse gases, which I have right now told, especially carbon dioxide, which are increasing in the Earth's atmosphere because of the human activities, it results in the increasing in the Earth's temperature, and this is causing global warming. The average temperature of Earth is about 15 degrees Celsius more than it would have been before the greenhouse gases. So see how bigger is the change, or you can say temperature kitna zyada बढ़ गया है in the Earth atmosphere because of these greenhouse gases. Human activities during the last few decades of industrialization and population growth have made the situation worse. So because of this industrialization, because of the human activities, because of the anthropogenic reasons, and because of the population growth, ये situation Earth पर बहुत ज़्यादा serious हो गई है because of the increase in the temperature of the Earth's atmosphere. So global warming has led to the shifts of climate zones in many world regions, including expansion of the arid climate zones and contraction of the polar climate zones. So this is the report which I am telling you. This is the fact which I am quoting from the IPCC 2020 Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So it is saying because of the global warming, what has happened that world के जो climatic zones हैं, they have shifted, including the expansion of arid climate zone. All the regions जो dry areas हैं, arid zones हैं, उनका expansion हुआ है, and जो polar regions हैं, जो ice covered regions हैं, उनका contraction हुआ है. There is a contraction of the polar climatic zones all over the world. As a consequence, naturally, when there is a disturbance in the balance in the equilibrium on the Earth, so it will definitely put negative effects on all the whole ecosystem, including the biological world, including the living organisms on the Earth. So, as a consequence, what happens? Many plant and animal species have experienced changes in their ranges, abundances, and shifts in their seasonal activities. So, इस climate change की वजह से plants और animals पे बहुत ज़्यादा negative effect पड़ा है. Climate change creates additional stress on the land. It creates risk on the livelihoods, biodiversity, human and ecosystem health, infrastructure and food system. This is the report I am quoting. This is the fact which I am quoting from the IPCC 2020 report. So see how changes have been have occurred in the ecosystem and in the climate of the whole world. So what is the biggest concern? Greenhouse effect होने की वजह से, ये global warming होने की वजह से, what is the biggest concern? Why we are so much concerned? So actually, what I have right now told you, it has disturbed the Earth's climatic equilibrium and has led to an increase in the global average surface temperature. So surface temperatures बढ़ने की वजह से, it is the main cause जिसकी वजह से पूरा balance हमारी इकोसिस्टम का, हमारी क्लाइमेट का चेंज हो रहा है. So this increase in the Earth's temperature is predicted to have serious effects such as changes in the rainfall, ocean circulation, increasing numbers of extreme weather events, and rising in the sea level. So these changes can have further consequences on human health also, agriculture, biodiversity, and the whole ecosystem. So slowly we'll just discuss about all the consequences of greenhouse effect and global warming. So first we should know what are the greenhouse gases which are contributing onto the overall global warming of the Earth. So gases that trap the heat in the atmosphere are known as greenhouse gases, which contribute to the global climate change that I have told you. So this greenhouse effect is actually required by our Earth for the normal life processes to sustain. And it is a natural process. अगर ये greenhouse effect ना होता तो हमारी Earth बहुत cold होती. And life would not have been possible on Earth. So greenhouse effect is required on the Earth for the life to flourish. But because of the increase of the greenhouse gases, which alters the temperature on the Earth, it causes serious effects on the life on the Earth. So although necessary in the atmosphere in smaller concentrations, the increased amount of greenhouse gases जैसे carbon dioxide है, methane है और तमाम gases हैं, it leads to enhanced global warming. Such changes are leading to changes in the overall climate of the Earth, and I have right now told you that these gases are mostly produced as a result of human activity. Now, what are the sources of these greenhouse gas emissions? So we will discuss in detail, but ज़्यादातर जो sources हैं वो यही हैं. Transportation के लिए हम fuel को burn करते हैं for our cars, trucks, ships, trains, and planes, etc. Then electricity production, that also causes addition of harmful gases in the atmosphere. Industries, burning fossil fuels for the energy, commercial and residential sources, agricultural sources, and land use forestry. So all these are actually the sources for the greenhouse gas emissions. So greenhouse gas emissions have driven the atmospheric concentration of carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrogen oxides to the levels which were not seen in the last 8 lakh years. This is the fact I am quoting from IPCC 2014. So see how these levels have enhanced in the atmosphere. Now, before going in detail, what we have to study and what is the effects, how you can say serious will be the effect of any gas in the atmosphere, that can be defined or that can be gauged by these 3 questions. That how much is in the that particular gas is in the atmosphere, how long do that gas stay in the atmosphere, and how strongly do they impact the atmosphere, right? So these 3 questions will tell us that how any gas, any greenhouse gas can affect the climate change on the earth. So one by one we will see about the different greenhouse gases. So number one, and you can say the biggest contributor of the greenhouse gas is CO2, carbon dioxide. Iske sources I have right now told you, that burning the fossil fuels, solid waste, trees and other biological materials, and it is also the result of certain chemical reactions also. Now these are the sources. And we all know that as the population is increasing, as the human interference in the ecosystem is increasing, as the industrialization is increasing, so naturally, yes, source bhi, it's rising at an alarming rate in the atmosphere. Now, sequestration means where this carbon dioxide and how this carbon dioxide is being absorbed or reduced from the atmosphere. It is number one by the plants, because we all know that through the process of photosynthesis, plants, what they do, they take in the carbon dioxide and release the oxygen. So plants and oceans, they are known to sequester the carbon dioxide present in the atmosphere. So oceans are also known as the biggest sinks of carbon dioxide, and plants, we all know that they for the process of photosynthesis, they utilize carbon dioxide. So, as I have told you earlier also, that 80% contributor of all the greenhouse gases carbon dioxide is the 80% contributor. Of all the main greenhouse gases, only CO2 is responsible 80%. And that is too because of the anthropogenic reasons, human-induced reasons. We ourselves are creating problems for the environment. The CO2 in the atmosphere has increased by 31% since pre-industrial times and causing more heat to be trapped in the lower atmosphere. So actually the optimum level जो CO2 का एक reasonable level होना चाहिए for all the life forms to work properly, it is 350 parts per million. But it has crossed long back, and now of the recent data which I have collected from Mauna Loa Observatory data website, so I saw that it has crossed 417 parts per million in 2021. That's the data of March 2021. So see how much concentration of carbon dioxide has increased in the atmosphere. Second is methane. Methane is emitted during the production of coal, natural gas, oil, and it also results from the livestock and other agricultural practices, जैसे कि rice fields होती हैं, paddy fields होती हैं, उससे methane emit होता है, and by the decay of the organic waste in the municipal solid waste landfills. Next major greenhouse gas is nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide is emitted during agricultural and industrial activities, combustion of the fossil fuels, solid waste, as well as during treatment of the wastewater. So maximum greenhouse emission जो है वो fuel burning से है, we can see. And the next is fluorinated gases like hydrofluorocarbones, perfluorocarbons. They are the byproduct of aluminium production and are used in the manufacturing of semiconductors. Then sulfur hexafluoride, it is used as an insulating gas. Nitrogen trifluoride, they all are synthetic, but they are very powerful greenhouse gases which are emitted from various industrial processes. Now, fluorinated gases are sometimes also used as the substitutes for the ozone depleting substances. जो ओजोन लेयर में डिप्लीशन हो रहा है उसके सोर्सेज जैसे क्लोरोफ्लोरोकार्बन्स वगैरह हैं, तो उसके लिए सब्स्टिट्यूट के तौर पर भी इस्तेमाल किए जाते हैं these fluorinated gases, but they are harmful greenhouse gases. But Montreal Protocol के हिसाब से क्लोरोफ्लोरोकार्बन्स और HCFCs, they are being phased out, ruled out under an international agreement. So fluorinated gases, though they are released in very small amounts, but they have very high global warming potentials. तो चाहे वो छोटे amount में भी release हो, but they cause enhanced temperatures in the atmosphere. They have large effects on the global temperatures. Why? Because they can easily mix up with the atmosphere, then spreading around all over the world. And these gases are very potent and longest lasting type of greenhouse gases emitted by the human activities. तो जैसे मैंने आपको वो 3 क्राइटेरिया बताए थे कि how that particular gas is affecting the climate. तो ये इस पे भी डिपेंड करता है कि how long that particular gas is lasting in the atmosphere. So as I have told you right now, that fluorinated gases, they are very potent and they can last for a longer period in the atmosphere and affecting the temperature of the earth. So this is the overview of the greenhouse emissions in 2018. You can see that maximum it is being done by carbon dioxide, then methane, and then nitrous oxide and fluorinated gases. So through this data, we can make out that how we humans are destroying our nature, our environment, and in the long term, after all, it will come back to us only. Now, this is the data which I have collected from the net only, the 2016 global emissions of greenhouse gases. So you can see that manufacturing and construction process, this is the highest, or you can say सबसे ज़्यादा ये एक source बनता है for the global greenhouse gas emissions के लिए. Then comes the transport, then agriculture, followed by land use and forestry, then commercial and all these things. So there are many sources through which these gases are emitted in the atmosphere. Now, how this climate change and this global warming can affect the human health? So, जैसे जैसे temperature बढ़ता है, just a minute. It may increase the vector-borne diseases, it may increase the allergies, the waterborne diseases, water and food supply can also be affected because of the increase in the temperature. It may affect the agriculture also because of the increased heat. A person can, humans can have heat stress and cardiovascular problems. Injuries it can also result in various injuries, asthma, air pollution, cardiovascular diseases, respiratory allergies, and so many. So through this slide, you can see that how this change in the climate, how the change in the environment can affect the human health directly. Indirect effects are many, but this you can see how directly this change in the atmosphere environment can affect the human health. Now, specifically, if we see what changes to the climate are humans causing through the global warming, what humans are contributing. So, human activities during the last few decades of industrialization and population growth have polluted the atmosphere seriously. Because of this industrialization and population growth, we are interfering in the natural equilibrium or the balance which is maintained in the on the earth. So through this I am quoting from the IPCC special report that human-induced warming has reached approximately 1 degree Celsius above the pre-industrial levels. So 1 degree Celsius, you can't feel that 1 degree Celsius change on your body. You can just wear another warmer or something like that. But 1 degree Celsius change on all over the world, if we are talking on the earth, then it may create drastic changes on all the physiological aspects and all the physiological processes of animals and plants. So 1 degree Celsius change means a big change on earth. So climate experts say that it will be at least 8 degrees, the earth atmosphere will become 8 degrees warmer by 2100. So it is very alarming that we should do something right now to save our earth in future. So global warming is a very serious issue, and all the more so because its effect on one component of the earth triggers a serious effects on the other related components. So on the earth, as we all know, as a part of an ecosystem, we all are connected with all the biotic and abiotic components of the ecosystem. Any ill effect, any negative effect on any one component of the ecosystem can have serious effects on the different components which are related to that particular component. For example, we will discuss in detail in the coming slides that global warming is resulting in melting of the polar ice. So if this polar ice melts, what will happen? It will raise the seawater level, and in turn what will happen? Melting of polar ice will directly affect the sea level. This is the first effect. Now in turn what will happen? The second effect, we can see that low-lying areas around the world will submerge, and then what will happen? All the aquatic and those you can say plant and animal species who are living on those low-lying areas, they all will be affected. That will be the third effect. So we can say that even a slightest change because of the change in the temperature or increase in the temperature, if a slightest change is there in any of the component of the ecosystem, it will drastically affect other components of the ecosystem. So this warming will alter the Earth's whole climate, including land, atmosphere, oceans, ice, and many other ways. So studies show that there is a global temperature increase of 1.4 degrees Celsius between the year 1900 to 2005. So this global warming effect causes large effects on the other smaller climates, like increases in the frequency of the intense rainfall, decrease in the snow cover, more frequent and intense heat waves, rise in the sea levels, widespread ocean acidification, and so on. So that we will discuss in detail. But the global warming in itself is just a word, global warming, but its effects are widespread all over the earth, on smaller microclimates to macroclimates, on all the aspects of on all the components of the ecosystem it is affecting. Now, the indicators of a warming world, and these indicators which I have shown over here, you can easily correlate by the news which you all are getting nowadays through some glacier melting, or recently we heard about avalanche, this thing which causes floods in many areas of Uttarakhand. So nowadays, every now and then we can get these news, getting high heat waves, frequent and untimely rains. Then, so these are the indicators of warming world. How we can say that Earth's temperature is increasing. So air temperature, number one, you can say that is the direct effect. The temperature of the air is increasing. It causes increases in the humidity. Temperature over oceans is also increasing, because of which surface temperature of the oceans is also increasing. Sea surface temperature is increasing. The sea ice are decreasing. Ocean heat content is increasing. Sea level is rising. Land temperature is rising. Snow covers and glaciers are decreasing. So these are the indicators, different indicators, which tells that overall temperature of the earth is increasing. Now, consequences of global warming. What can be the consequences of global warming? So in the past few years, the records have been broken for longest heat waves. Means every year, every few years, after few years, we are getting a new record of high temperatures. And Bureau of Meteorology has added, actually Bureau of Meteorology, they have assigned different colors for different temperatures and humidity for particular areas. So they have added purple and magenta color for the temperatures up to 54 degrees. So we can see that in just 40 degrees, we just like हम लोगों को कितनी परेशानी होती है in just 40-42 degrees, but temperatures are reaching up to 54-55 degrees Celsius. So we are getting hotter days. Then more frequent and intense extreme weather events like bushfires, these fires of Australia, you all have heard about, then cyclones, on and off we get new and high intensity cyclones, then drought conditions, they are prevalent everywhere now. We can see that farmers are so much worried about these droughts की वजह से उनकी agriculture proper तरीके से नहीं हो पाती है, and then floods, they are so frequent, they are so common. These are all the results of the global warming. Then oceans are warming and acidifying. The oceans, they are known to absorb carbon dioxide. So because they are the sink, they act as a sink for carbon dioxide. So जितनी ज़्यादा carbon dioxide हवा में होगी, they have to absorb more and more carbon dioxide, and which makes the oceans more warmer and also acidic. So warming waters, they are bleaching the coral reefs. We will discuss that also in the coming slides. The coral reefs जो हैं, they are bleaching, means उनके color जो है वो बदल जा रहे हैं, they are becoming white because of these acidification of the oceans. It also results in this reduction in the species of some fishes, some crustaceans, and many other aquatic animals. Yes, though effects on animals. How can global warming affect animals? So a large number of animal species will disappear from the planet as a result of loss of habitat, which is triggered by the global warming. So as I have told you, global warming in itself is just a process of increase in the temperature. But how that process is affecting different life forms on the earth. Because of the increase in the temperature, animals are facing habitat loss. And because of this habitat loss, the animals, they are not getting place to live. And slowly, they are disappearing. In fact, it's feared that sooner or later it will trigger a mass extinction and 1/3 of the species will become extinct by 2050 itself. तो जब animals के लिए रहने की proper जगह नहीं होगी, proper माहौल नहीं होगा, proper environment नहीं होगा, तो what will happen? We will see that many animals species are going to become extinct because they will not get proper place to live on Earth. So rising temperatures are affecting wildlife and their habitats. Vanishing ice has challenged species such as some penguin, Adelie penguin in Antarctica, where some populations on the Western Peninsula have decreased 90% or more. तो आप देखिए कि इस तरीके के जो animal species हैं, जिनका habitat ही cold and ice snow places हैं, तो वहां पर जब टेम्परेचर बढ़ने की वजह से ये आइस धीरे धीरे खत्म होने लगेगी, तो व्हाट विल हैपन? सच एनिमल्स व्हिच लिव ऑन दीज एरियाज वेयर आइस इज, उनका जो हैबिटेट रिक्वायरमेंट है ऑफ वेरी लो डिग्री टेम्परेचर्स, तो वहां पे वो पॉपुलेशन इन एनिमल्स की धीरे धीरे कम होने लगेगी. एज आई हैव कोटेड ओवर हियर that particular penguin population has decreased 90%. 90% means it is about to get like over a period of time. So studies have also told that around 15 to 37% of the plant species will wipe off by the planet by 2050, that I have quoted earlier. So by 2050, अगर यही speed रही global warming की, climate change की, and threatening of the animal species की, so in the end of 2050 we will see that maximum, we can say 15 to 37% animals species will, plant and animal species will wipe off, will extinct. And it is a matter of great concern, being biology students. Similarly, polar bears, we all know that they live in negative temperatures where all over ice is there. So polar bears, they depend on ice which is formed on the sea. If the ice melts, their range will decrease to a great extent, and this loss of habitat will in turn lead to a decline in their population. तो जो उनका habitat है, जब वही खत्म की तरफ जाने लगेगा, तो where they will live? So automatically what will happen? Slowly and slowly their population will decline, and one day we can, ये situation आ जाएगी easily that they may extinct or critically threatened condition में चले जाएंगे. Then penguins. The melting sea ice will also result in the decline in the growth of the algae, which in turn will affect the population of tiny organisms like krill and shrimp, which constitute an important part of the penguin diet. तो पेंगुइन की जब डाइट इफेक्ट होगी या पेंगुइन को प्रॉपर तरीके से फूड नहीं मिलेगा, तो हाउ कैन दैट पर्टिकुलर स्पीशीज और एनिमल्स कैन सर्वाइव? So because of the scarcity of the food and the loss of habitat, eventually what will happen? Penguins का भी population धीरे धीरे कम हो जाएगा. To see how directly and indirectly global warming is affecting all the aspects of all the components of the ecosystem. So how it is affecting the animals. Similarly, Arctic fox. So this is also an animal which lives in cooler habitats. But because of the global warming, these colder regions, they are shrinking. और जब ये कोल्डर रीजन श्रिंक होंगे, हैबिटेट्स छोटे हो जाएंगे, खात्मे की तरफ होंगे, देन व्हाट विल हैपन? वो एनिमल्स जो इन हैबिटेट्स में रहते हैं, उनके लिए बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा सरवाइव करना. एंड डेफिनेटली इन द नियर फ्यूचर we will not be able to see their proper population surviving their habitats. So जैसे जैसे टेम्परेचर तब्दील होता है, चेंज होता है, animals naturally they want to live in a comfortable environment, so they will try to go on a search कि भाई हमें बेहतर कोई environment मिले जहां पर हम रह सकें, and they will try to move on from that place. So इसकी वजह से animals will try to migrate to the different cooler areas. So this will also cause in the dilution of that particular population in that area. So overall we have seen that जितने भी cooler इलाकों में रहने वाले, colder इलाकों में रहने वाले animals हैं, aquatic animals हैं, उन सब की life is going to drastically affect by global warming. Now the effects on plants. So because of the temperature changes, we all know that all the processes in the plants are greatly affected by the change in the temperatures. So growing season of some plant species will also be altered by the disturbed, because of the changes in the temperature, their reproduction cycle of those species will be disturbed. Because of the changes in the precipitation pattern, changes in the rainfall timings and patterns, it will also cause various effects on the plant species. The effects of the global warming on agriculture. Frequent rains, they will result? They will result into floodings, whereas less rains will result in drought. So either it is flooding or it is drought. In both the conditions, agricultural fields are going to face. So agricultural fields, automatically we can say the plant will definitely get affected either in the high temperatures, high rainfall or low rainfall. In both the cases, plants are going to face. Because temperature increase, definitely we all know that temperature increases की वजह से land पे जो problem है animals को, उतनी ही effect oceans पे ही पड़ने वाला है because of the heating effect. Because I have told you in the earlier slides that because of the increase of the temperature on the atmosphere, it also results in the heating of the temperature of the oceans, of the water bodies. And because of the heating of the water bodies or the oceans, we can say it results in the hurricanes. They are the storms which comes in the water. And because of this, it will also affect the plants on the land or even in the oceans. Now, as we have discussed about the animal extinctions or the effects of the global warming on the animals, so it will directly or indirectly affect the plants also. For example, as we all know that we are like tigers number is decreasing in all the forest all over. So extinction of tiger, what will it result? It will result into the increase in the number of the herbivores. And excessive feeding by them will deplete the forest cover. So every trophic level or every component of the ecosystem is interconnected. We all study this in environment subjects also, that all the trophic levels, all the components of the ecosystem are interconnected. So if the consumers in the forest are affected, definitely it will result into the effect on the different trophic levels which are connected with that particular animal. So decrease in the tiger population will result in the increase of the herbivorous animals. Herbivorous animals क्या करेंगे जब उनका number increase हो जाएगा? It will definitely they will do excessive feeding of the plants which are there in the forest. And what will happen? धीरे धीरे forest cover deplete होने लग जाएगा. So it will definitely every component is interconnected. और एक पे effect होने से it will directly affect the other component. Similarly, if the extinction of the birds, what will happen? अगर birds extinct होने लगी, तो birds तो they are the you can say almost a very big source of pollination. तो plants के अंदर जो pollination होता है वो birds के through होता है. बहुत सारे pollination birds के through होते हैं. और अगर birds का ही extinction होने लग जाए तो हमें pollinators की कमी पड़ जाएगी. And this will become a hurdle for the reproduction process of the plants. So animals पे effect होने से it will indirectly affect the plants also. तो जितना threat animals को है उतना ही plants को भी है. तो because of these factors, many plant species are expected to become extinct by the end of this century. Now, because of this global warming, हमारे weather पे क्या-क्या effect पड़ सकते हैं? Just a minute. So because of the changes in the temperature in the world, on the earth, it may trigger a number of weather extremities and alter the climatic patterns, the local climatic patterns. For example, like through the reports, it has been reported that number of natural calamities have increased over the recent years. Last 3 decades have witnessed a rise in the number of high category storms. Every now and then you can hear about a cyclone and about huge storms. So in these previous 3 decades, the high category storms, that is category 4 and 5 category storms, इनका number बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया है. So this Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, says that frequency of intense rains has increased over the last 50 years. So because of this global warming, these rains की जो frequency है वो बढ़ गई है. Precipitation has increased across the globe on an average. But what happened? But some areas they are experiencing severe drought, because of which there is a loss of crops, there is a shortage of the drinking water, there is a risk of wildfires and all. So global warming is also affecting the local climate, local weather of any area also. Now, effects on the glaciers. तो ग्लोबल वार्मिंग का एक बहुत ज्यादा सीरियस इफेक्ट देखा जाता है ग्लेशियर्स के ऊपर. दीज आर द परमानेंट आइस कवर्स प्रेजेंट ऑन द माउंटेन्स or on the planet. So there are several glaciers which are present all over the world, which form the important source of fresh water. So as we all know that very less water available on the earth is fresh water, almost 3%, 97% is ocean water. And of that fresh water, a large portion is present in the glaciers. So global land ice measurement from space is one of the several projects जो कि इन glaciers को monitor करती है, and they have revealed that these glaciers, they are depleting at a very alarming rate. और इसको माना गया है कि ये सबसे बड़ा एक फैक्टर है जिसकी वजह से ओवरऑल सी लेवल जो है वो बढ़ रहा है. तो it is of great concern that how drastically these glaciers are disappearing from the planet. So Alaska glacier जो है, it has accelerated and doubled over the period of the last 5 to 7 years. Number of glaciers in the Glacier National Park in Montana, they have dropped from estimated figure of 150 to 50 within a span of 150 years. तो 150 साल के अंदर इनका glaciers का जो count है वो 150 से 50 रह गया है, and it is expected to further drop, and it will lead to disappearance of all the glaciers in that particular park by 2030. To see how it is causing, how the global warming is drastically depleting the glacier counts. It is a famous glacier park और उसमें से सारे glaciers खत्म हो जाने हैं by 2030. So how alarming it is. So ice is melting worldwide, especially by the Earth's poles. United States Geological Survey says that the renowned Glacier National Park in this United States will be left without glaciers by 2030. That is what has been said in the previous point, that by 2030 there will be no glacier left in that particular glacier park. So by 2040, the Arctic region is predicted to have a completely ice-free summer. So sad. Then effects on the sea levels. So how exactly the global warming is affecting the sea levels? So geographical studies says that on heating, water जो है वो expand करता है. तो in this case, global temperatures जैसे जैसे बढ़ेंगे, they will cause the water bodies to heat and expand. And this is the reason because of which sea levels are rising, these glaciers are melting, and the sea levels are rising. As I have told you right now, the ice stores a lot of fresh water in them. The ice are massive that we can imagine. In fact, melting of the West Antarctic ice sheet alone may cause the sea to rise by 10 meters. 10 meters is you can say a big height. तो अगर पूरा वेस्ट एंटार्क्टिक आइस शीट मेल्ट हो जाती है तो सिर्फ इसी के मेल्ट होने से 10 मीटर तक सी लेवल बढ़ सकता है. According to the IPCC reports, the sea levels have witnessed a rise of 6.7 inches in the last 1 century. So in the last 100 years, 6.7 inch increase हो जाता है. You can imagine how much it is. 6 inches, almost more than a foot. So, I'm sorry. At this rate, what will happen? Just a minute. And if this rate goes on, the global sea levels are expected to rise by 22 inches by 2100. So it's so alarming. And what will happen if these sea levels rise? So these consequences we are going to discuss in the next slides. Sea levels बढ़ने से what can be the consequences? Many of the लो लाइंग जो एरियाज हैं वो तो सबमर्ज हो जाएंगे. सबमर्ज होने से क्या होगा, सारी जो बायोडाइवर्सिटी वहां पर है वो डिस्ट्रॉय हो जाएगी, है ना. एंड इट विल ऑल्सो रिजल्ट, या आई विल discuss in the next slides. So much of this melting ice contributes to the sea level. Global sea levels are rising at a rate of 0.13 inches per year, and the rise is occurring at a faster rate in the recent years. So recent जो years है, where we can see the anthropogenic effects are very high. तो उतने अगर टाइम का आप देखिए तो यहाँ पर जो इंक्रीज इन द सी लेवल्स है वो बहुत ज्यादा ड्रास्टिक है. Melting glaciers can trigger the flash floods in the surrounding regions. More importantly, the melted water flows into the oceans, thus causing the sea level to rise, which eventually leads to the submerging of the low-lying areas and tiny islands. That's what I was saying. कि अगर ये ग्लेशियर्स मेल्ट हो जाएंगे तो इवेंचुअली व्हाट विल हैपन, सी लेवल बढ़ जाएगा. सी लेवल बढ़ने से तो जितने भी लो लाइंग एरियाज हैं और छोटे छोटे आइलैंड्स हैं, दे विल सबमर्ज. तो ऑल द लाइफ प्रेजेंट ऑन दैट दोज लो लाइंग एरियाज विल बी ड्रास्टिकली अफेक्टेड. और जो सबमर्ज हो जाएंगे वहां तो सारा डिस्टर्बेंस ही आएगी पूरे इकोसिस्टम में. If this happens, what will happen? So islands like Maldives and Tuvalu and the low-lying areas of Bangladesh and Florida in the US will go underwater. So all the life will vanish over there. सारे ये islands डूब जाएंगे पानी के अंदर. If this is the rate by which the glaciers are melting, अगर यही rate रहा, तो it's not far that these islands will totally submerged in the water. Also important cities of India like Mumbai, then Shanghai, and many places will be affected by this increase in the sea level. So, in fact, the Maldives sinking will be the best example of destruction due to the rise in the sea levels. So, if this global temperature rises with this high rate, and if these glaciers melt at this pace, then in the near future, this will be the scenario where we can see that these islands, these small islands and these low-lying areas will get submerged in the water. Antarctica is losing about 134 billion metric tons of ice per year since 2002. And if this rate could speed up, if we keep burning the fossil fuels at the current pace, the experts say that it will cause sea levels to rise several meters over the next 50 to 150 years. So we can see that how much water is there in these ice, how much water is stored in these ice, and how important that it should be stored in those glaciers and those ice in that form. Otherwise, it will cause devastation. Now, effects on the coral reefs. The effects of the global warming on the coral reefs are devastating to that extent that these will be the major ecosystem of the oceans which will be wiped off from the planet. Agar ye ocean warm up honge because of these temperature which is raising day by day, when these oceans will warm up, what will happen? The algae in the oceans, they will produce toxins which are called as superoxides, and they will cause the damaging of the corals. As a defense mechanism, what will happen? These corals will turn white, which is called bleaching of corals, which I have told you in the starting of the slides, that increase in the global warming will also result in the bleaching of the corals. So global warming is threatening the coral reefs to a great extent, and if coral reefs are wiped off, it will affect 1/3 of the planet's marine biodiversity and other related ecosystems. So see, if these coral reefs are wiped off because of these global warming, then what will happen? 1/3 of the marine biodiversity will be affected. And marine biodiversity affect hoga, so automatically it will affect the other ecosystems on the earth. Now, effects on the humans. So naturally, जब plants affect होंगे, animals affect होंगे, marine biolife affect होगी, islands पे इतना ज़्यादा effects पड़ेगा, तो humans will be the worst who will be affected. They will be among the worst who are affected. As we are dependent on all the components of environment, as we have already discussed, animals and plants are related to each other. So the extinction of either will put tremendous pressure on the dependent species, eventually leading to its extinction. That's what I have telling you from the starting, that every component of the ecosystem is important. अगर किसी एक species का extinction होगा, तो it will definitely put pressure on the other component of the ecosystem. As I have given you the example of tiger in the forest. Tiger की extinction से automatically it will lead to the increase in the number of the herbivores. Herbivores की increase होने से it will deplete the green part of the forest, and slowly the forest cover will deplete. So similarly, जिस तरीके से animals और plants connected हैं, related हैं, अगर किसी भी एक particular species का extinction होगा, it will put pressure on the other species or other component of the ecosystem. And one species extinction will result in the later time to the extinction of the another species. And as we all know that humans are dependent both on plants and animals, so we are actually worst affected. We will be worst affected and we should be most worried, but we are not at all in the present day. So warm summers will result into more allergies, more diseases. Unnatural, untimely precipitation will result in the destruction of the crops, and it will automatically affect the agricultural sector. Rising temperature will lead to the warming of the ocean bodies, which in turn will increase the frequency of the hurricanes and the high category storms. Destruction of the coral reefs will lead to the loss of the marine life, including the fish, which is the important part of our diet. Loss of the glaciers will hamper the water supply of many people. Rise in the sea level will result in the life on the coastlines, thus affecting the tourism sector. It is going to affect the tourism sector also. We all know that we all are dependent on the fresh water, but if the saline water from the oceans flow over into the red river beds, what will happen? That river water will also will become in an unusable form, will convert into the not utilizable form. So हमारे पास shortage of water भी हो जाएगा for drinking purposes and for all the other day-to-day life processes. Coastal areas all over the world, they are highly populated. So अगर sea level बढ़ता है, then it will directly affect the population which is residing in that coastal areas. Glaciologists estimate that अगर glaciers का melting इसी तरीके से इसी rate से होता रहा, तो by 2020 around 20% of Bangladesh will be underwater. So automatically those people who are residing in those areas of that country, they will be badly affected. And countries like Maldives with the highest point of 2.4 meters above sea level will get submerged by the sea waters if these levels rises by 3 meters. So it's so alarming for the people who are living in the coastal areas. And after all, it will in the end affect the economy. So humans पे जब इसका effect पड़ेगा, and actually the repercussions of these global warming effects, they will be affecting economy at a very high level. Why? Because those nations जिनकी economy सिर्फ agricultural based है, वो सबसे ज़्यादा affect होंगे. Because as I have discussed earlier, that because of the global warming, the agriculture, the crops, they are going to be affected very much. तो अगर crops proper नहीं होंगी, तो what will happen? Country की economy is going to be affected badly. The phenomena will trigger a series of changes in the weather conditions, which will take its toll on agriculture and allied activities. So owing to this unnatural precipitation, crop failure and crop loss and destruction of the crop and the agricultural field will be a common phenomena. तो उन कंट्रीज में जहां पर जैसे इंडिया जैसे है या और कंट्रीज जिनकी इकोनॉमी एग्रीकल्चरल बेस्ड है, वहां पर इस global warming effect is indirectly going to affect their economy badly. Those economies which are dependent on tourism, they are going to be greatly affected with the increase in the global warming, with the increase in the sea levels and all. Yes, so that's what I was telling, that जो इलाके जहाँ पर टूरिज्म खासकर टूरिज्म से इकोनॉमी चलती है, जैसे कि मालदीव्स जो कि बेस्ट एग्जांपल है इस वक्त, आई एम गिविंग दिस एग्जांपल अगेन एंड अगेन. सो जैसे ही वाटर लेवल राइज करेंगे इन द कोस्टल एरियाज, व्हाट विल हैपन, जो लो लाइंग एरियाज, जो कोस्टल एरियाज हैं, जो बीचेस हैं, दे विल completely submerge into the water, and what will happen, it will affect the tourism. So yes, this I have discussed. Okay, just you can see that there is some Portage Glacier, Alaska, earlier, and then in 2004, this glacier has melted completely. There's some river, Colorado River, in 2002, you can see it has shrinked in just 1 year. Now, responses to global warming. Mitigation means the efforts which are going on, which the countries have decided or worked on to reduce this global warming, like Kyoto Protocol. It was adopted in 1997. Actually, it is an international treaty which extends the 1992 United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and it says and asks the participating countries to reduce the anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions, which is based on scientific consensus. I think that global warming is occurring and that human-made carbon dioxide emissions are driving it. So this is a worldwide consensus on. There is a worldwide consensus on this thing, that the carbon dioxide emission is actually anthropogenic, human-made, and through this protocol, it has been asked to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. Then the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, it is also an international environmental treaty which addresses the countries who are participating countries, 154 states, and ask them to reduce the greenhouse gases emission. So it is, it was known as Earth Summit till 1992. So UNFCCC entered into force in 94, and it has universal membership. Almost 197 countries have participated in this, and it says to prevent or reduce the human interference with the climate system to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. And now what our duty is. So being a responsible citizen of a country, being a responsible part of the ecosystem, it is our duty to reduce those causes which are anthropogenic, which are human created, which are resulting in increase in the concentration of the global warming gases or greenhouse gases. So we have to be more environment friendly. We should reduce those emission, those you can say activities which causes increase in the concentration of the greenhouse gases in the environment. So we have to follow this 3R concept: reduce, reuse, and recycle. We should use less heat and air conditioning to reduce the ozone depletion gases and to reduce the global warming causing gases. We should change the light bulbs by the CFLs. We should drive less and drive smart. We should buy energy efficient products. We should use less hot waters, and we should use the off switch. frequently. So these are the references I have taken, and thank you very much for patiently listening my lecture. Any questions?
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is ready for presentation.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It was very wonderful to see the impacts of global warming and what is need of the day. You have explained so clearly, and you have also given some citations how the glaciers are turning into the water bodies. So, and recently what we have seen in Uttarakhand is a beautiful example of the
Yes,
same.
yes, yes. That's why I
So
quoted
there
there.
are a number of consequences going on where the anthropogenic activities are making lot of hazards to the environment. So it
Yes,
was wonderful talk by you on the global warming. So I expect that you in future also you will be helping us in such
definitely, definitely.
talks.
Sure,
Thank you
sure.
so much.
Thank you so much. So, thank you. So, shall I leave?
Yeah, you can. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So now, sir, Avneet sir, can you start your sharing screen?
Sure, Dr. Khan, I can start, no problems. Am I audible, sir?
Sir, you're audible.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen, sir. Just a moment, just a moment. Is it okay, sir?
Yes, yes. So colorful, so beautiful. 1 second, give me a second for introduction.
Yeah, sure, sir.
And then you can start your presentation.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Good afternoon and welcome. We welcome Professor Abhi Pal Singh, Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, Punjabi University, Patiala. He is MSc Botany, University Gold Medalist, PhD. 1 second. So, sir is MSc Botany, University Gold Medalist, PhD in mycology. He has described 160 taxa, including 2 new genera and 18 new species of food-rotting Agaromycetius fungi from Himalaya. Teaching experience of 13 years. He has completed his PhD in resupinate Ephylophoriaceous fungi associated with some tree species of Himachal Pradesh and Punjab. His MSc and BSc is from Punjabi University, and even he is a Bachelor of Education. His awards are Best Paper in Technical Session on Second Asian Congress of Mycology and Plant Pathology, held at the Department of Botany, Usmania University. He got university medal for standing first in MSc Botany during 2000 and 2002. He is a member of Life Member Mycological Society of India, Life Member Punjab Academy of Science, Annual Member Indian Botanical Society. He has guided 3 PhD scholars, and 1 is submitted and 4 are registered. 2 scholars got MPhil under his supervision, and 5 MSc dissertations he guided. Research projects to his credit are diversity of poroid and recipinate non-poroid Agaromycetius fungi of Punjab, supported by SERB DST New Delhi of 20 lakh worth, completed in 2017. There are 52 publications, research publications to his credit, and the information like he has thorough fungal forays conducted throughout the state of Punjab and Himachal Pradesh, and a ready-to-use manual of fungal diseases of forest trees of Punjab for the field staff was also published. An international collaboration with Dr. Ray Warden, University of Oslo, Norway, Professor Niels Hallenberg, University of Gothenburg, Sweden, and Professor Edward Langer, University of Kassel, Germany, for identification and expert opinion. He has been in the he has also conducted a workshop on basic techniques in plant tissue culture at Institute of Himalayan Bioresource Technology, Palampur, Himachal Pradesh in 2004. He has been in DST sponsored national workshop on taxonomy, ex situ conservation and bioprospecting of fungi organized by NFCCI Agarkar Institute, Pune during 2012 and May 2012 and June 2012. He has presented and participated in more than 35 conferences, his research papers. With these words of introduction, I would like to welcome Avineet sir to present biodiversity, the life support system on Earth. Over to Avineet sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khan. At the outset, I am extremely thankful to Dr. Ahmed Abdul Halim Khan, the chairperson, Department of Botany, Telangana University. It's an honor indeed to interact with the students from down south. And I am also extremely thankful to the entire faculty of Department of Botany, Telangana University, for giving me this opportunity to interact with the students of this very vibrant university. So thank you very much for the kind words, sir. For the last few years, there is an effort to learn something about botany. And beauty of botany is that when you enter into the field of botany, you come across so many different forms of life that really fascinate you to be in close association with nature. And because of that particular aspect, I have chosen this topic of biodiversity, which is known as the life support system on Earth. We cannot expect any form of life without this diversity. They are so interlinked, they are so closely webbed. One species affects the other species, and their coexistence makes this planet beautiful for the sustenance of life. So the topic chosen is biodiversity. Let me take it. Now let us move on to the very basic term biological diversity. Since most of the students also, they must be studying at their PG levels. So the term biological diversity, very broadly speaking, it includes the variety and variability among the living organisms and ecosystem complexes in which they occur. So that total variation, that total variability, when we club together, it forms the term which we refer to as biological diversity. And from this, the concised form biodiversity that was coined by Walter G. Rawson way back in the year 1986. Now, being students of biological sciences, we are studying biodiversity at different levels in different components. And one of the key instrument which deals with the biodiversity, that is known as CBD. CBD means Convention on Biodiversity. This was basically an international convention. This was an offshoot of the Earth Summit in 1992 that this convention was proposed, signed, and this is now one of the important instruments available for the conservation of biodiversity. In the Article 2 of Convention on Biodiversity, biodiversity is defined as variability among living organisms from all sources, including inter alia, terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic systems and ecological complexes which they are part of. So in these 4 lines, the beautiful biodiversity includes the organisms which are part of these ecological complexes, and that in totality diversity. Now we are into the month of March, and in the month of May, on 22nd of May every year, we celebrate the International Day for Biological Diversity. And if you go by the history, the United Nations proclaimed May 22nd as the International Biodiversity Day. So that has been proposed with an aim, with a motive of increasing the understanding and awareness of biodiversity and various issues to increase the sensitivity on this very important aspect. This particular day was proposed. Initially, the United Nations General Assembly in the year 1993 designated 29th December as the International Day for Biological Diversity. That was because of the promulgation of the Convention on Biological Diversity, which came into force on 29th of December. But in most of the countries, in most of the temperate countries, this was not a very convenient day to celebrate the International Day for Biological Diversity because of the holidays which usually prevail during last week of December. So in the year 2000, it was again adopted that instead of 29th of December, we can have 22nd May as the International Day for Biological Diversity to commemorate the adoption of text of CPD. So that text was adopted on 22nd May 1992. In that regard, 22nd of May from 2000 onwards was celebrated as International Day for Biological Diversity. Now, before going into the details, what are the different components and how biodiversity plays an important role, one must be aware of the levels at which biodiversity operates. If you look at the levels of biodiversity, we have three basic levels at which the biodiversity is operating. The very first level includes the genetic diversity. We all are aware that there is variation at the level of genes and chromosomes. This variation at the level of genes and chromosomes, it creates the variability among the individuals. And that variability among the individuals, among the populations within a same species creates what we refer to as genetic diversity. So this is basically among the populations within a species. And genetic diversity, it often increases with environmental variability. More the variation in environmental conditions, there will be a significant impact on the total makeup of an individual. And the response to particular set of environmental conditions may create certain variation in some individuals. And that leads to what we refer as genetic diversity. The next level is species diversity. So this is the variety of the species which occur within a region. The number of species occurring in a particular geographical region that constitutes the species diversity. In ecological studies, we measure the number of species on the basis of their occurrence in a defined geographical area. More the number of species, rich will be the species diversity. The highest level of diversity is ecosystem diversity. The name itself indicates, it designates the types of ecosystems. Along with the types of ecosystems, the variety of habitats, they are also included. And it refers to the number of species in a given area, plus ecological role played by that species in that particular area, and the change in species composition across the region when you move from one point to another point. So all this adds to the ecosystem diversity. You can take a beautiful example of a forest. When you move from one end of the forest to the other end of the forest, there is a range of variation. This variation is with reference to habitat. This variation is with reference to the ecological conditions. Plus, there is interaction that is happening among these species, and that constitutes what we refer to as ecosystem diversity. So genetic diversity, within species variation, species diversity among species or number of species, and ecosystem diversity, it includes the variation within that particular ecosystem and how it varies, leading to the ecosystem diversity. Now, Whitaker in the year 1972, he proposed three very, very important terms while measuring biodiversity over spatial scales. You can have this, you can do it at your levels depending upon the particular geographical area. Whenever we talk about biodiversity, we come across these three terms very frequently, that is alpha diversity, beta diversity, and gamma diversity. Now, alpha diversity is also known as within area or within habitat diversity. So the name indicates an area is demarcated, and within that area, what is the number of species occurring that constitutes the alpha diversity. So an area is taken, it is studied, number of species within that given area, they are studied, they are noticed, they are calculated, and that leads to the formation of alpha diversity. It also refers to the group of organisms interacting and competing for same resources or sharing the same environment. Since we are taking one area, there will be a set of resources available in that area, and these species, they will be competing for those resources. So that is what is happening when we take alpha diversity as the first parameter for spatial measurement of biological diversity. Second parameter is beta diversity. Now this designates the degree of species change along a habitat. So within one habitat, when you move from one point to another point, that tells you the variation, how the species composition is varying. That is an aspect of beta diversity. So this is basically a measure of between area or between habitat diversity. And this is represented by species turnover across a space. How the species composition is changing when you move from one place to another place as soon as this variation is taking place. You can have low beta diversity or high beta diversity. If there is a high beta diversity between 2 points, it indicates that these 2 points, they have very low similarity. Both of them, they are very exclusive in their composition, and both of them, they are very low in terms of their similarity in species composition. So these three parameters, this parameter that gives you an idea regarding that measurement of between area species. The third one that is there, this is the gamma diversity. Alpha diversity and gamma diversity, both of them, they include within area diversity. Alpha diversity caters to a smaller area, whereas gamma diversity basically refers to the measure of within area diversity, but it refers to the overall diversity of different ecosystems with comparatively larger geographical areas. So it is also referred to as geographical area. You can include larger areas under the purview of gamma diversity. So alpha, beta, and gamma diversity, they give us an idea how the spatial scales, they can be correlated with measurement of biodiversity. Since we are students of life sciences, we must be aware of the values of biodiversity. there are so many different types of services, different types of products which are made available by different components of biodiversity. If you look at the value of biodiversity, it is in terms of commercial utility. More importantly, it is in terms of ecological services which are provided by the components of biodiversity. Besides this, the biodiversity is also having social and aesthetic values. So these four major parameters, they give us an idea, a glimpse of the values of biodiversity. We can divide, broadly speaking, we can divide the values of biodiversity in the form of direct values and indirect values. Direct values can further be categorized into two major groups, the consumptive use values and the productive use values. Consumptive use values mean you can have you can consume that particular component in one or the other form. Productive use value means some commercially important product is derived from a component of biodiversity. When we talk about indirect values, we have social values, ethical values, aesthetic values, environment service values, and the optional values. They are not giving any direct benefit to the mankind, but when you study them in a larger perspective, you come to know how important role is being played in terms of indirect values extended by the components of biodiversity. Let's take up these aspects one by one. Consumptive use value. You can consume biodiversity components in the form of food, in the form of drugs, for fiber, for pulp, as fuel, so many other products. So this gives an idea how biodiversity is consumed directly for the welfare of mankind. If you talk only about food, there are 80,000 different types of edible plant species which are being consumed by the mankind. And you will be surprised that about 90% of the present day food crops, they have been domesticated from wild plants. So from wild, they have been gradually domesticated, and these domesticated plants are now forming the food of the population, huge population of this world. Not only plants, but a large number of wild animals, they also serve as a source of food. Of course, there are some issues which are related whether we can use these wild animals or we should use wild animals as source of food. That is a matter of debate, particularly with reference to the recent development of this COVID-19 issues. Besides food, we have the consumption of components of biodiversity in drugs and medicines. 75% of world's population is still dependent upon plants or plant extracts for different sorts of medicines. There is a big science of traditional medicinal system. In many parts of India, still the traditional medicinal system is being practiced, and that is also giving some very promising results. So you have the example, what we call as Plantago major. It's a husk that is obtained from the seed that is an excellent cure for any sort of bowel disorder. So that is one such example. And in different parts of India, this husk is being used as a common remedy. Penicillin, you must be all are aware, an antibiotic, probably the first antibiotic, very important, again derived from a fungus, that tiny fungus known as penicillium. And that tells the story how the biological diversity can be of importance to mankind. Quinine, which is obtained from Cinchona officinalis and 3 other species which together form totaquinine, and that is still an excellent remedy to cure malaria. Digitalin, which is obtained from Digitalis, there is Digitalis purpurea, Digitalis lanata, the two important members of Scrophulariaceae, whose apical portions they are used for getting this wonderful drug. Vinblastin, vincristin, the two very important anti-cancer alkaloids, again look at their source coming from plants. And in modern context, we all are aware of Taxol. We all are aware of so many other important products which are obtained from none other than the components of biological diversity. So what is this? This is all direct consumptive use value associated with the components of biodiversity. Besides food and drugs, fuel and fiber, they are two important aspects which entirely depend upon plant sources. You can use wood, you can use fossil fuel, where again components of biodiversity have been consumed to yield that fossil fuel. And fiber, we all are aware, be it the surface fibers, that is cotton, be it the bast fibers, jute, be it the leaf fibers, that is agave, seslana, all these are basically obtained. Not only plant, animal, so many animals, they are used as the source of fibers. We obtain very precious type of those fibers which are of animal origin. So that all adds to the consumptive value of biodiversity. You have productive use. So these are the commercially usable values or products which are marketed and sold. We all are aware of musk deer for the production of musk. Still the first choice as perfumes, as deodorants, silkworm that yields silk. We get wool from so many different animals, lac that is obtained from insects. These are few such examples. There are so many other examples. The list goes on and on. These are the commonly available products which we see, which are obtained from the components of biodiversity. Many industries, they are dependent upon these products. Pulp and paper industry, entirely dependent upon the plant sources. Silk industry, totally dependent upon that tiny silkworm. Ivory work, so many other industries, pearl industry, leather industry, and it is very sorry state of affair that the over exploitation of these products problem. It is putting of them even have become extinct because of this excessive pressure that is there on the components of biodiversity. So this over exploitation and consumptive use values, they are two direct uses of
Please, participants, wait for some time. I think our speaker has lost the connection, internet connection. Sir, please start sharing your screen. You are co-host now.
Okay, okay. I'll start, sir. I'll start. Is it okay, sir?
Right, sir.
So I think we left at social values. There are so many social values, customs, religious values, psycho-spiritual aspects which are concerned with the components of biodiversity. We have some plants which are being worshipped. They are considered as holy and sacred plants. We have social life, songs, dances, customs. They are all woven around with the surrounding wildlife. There are so many different types of animals which are worshipped and they have special value in biodiversity. There are certain ethical values as we must respect the idea of being to live and let live. So all life on this planet must be preserved. This means we don't use the species directly or directly, but we feel sorry about the loss of a species. That ethical value is that is imparted by the components of biodiversity. We all have aesthetics. We are very much fascinated to the surroundings which have lush green scenic beauty coupled with so many different types of landscapes. All these landscapes, they have their value, they have their aesthetic value because of the biological diversity components. So this sort of aesthetic value is also attached to the biodiversity components. We also have the option value. So option value is the potential which is associated with the components of biodiversity that are presently unknown. There are some issues, there are some aspects which might be explored in near future. You never know. We have the marine animals. They can be an potential source for so many different compounds. We have endophytic fungi, so many different types of microbes. We have entered into the microbial biotechnology like anything. So all these, they have got a option value available with themselves. And most importantly, it is the ecosystem service value, which is a non-consumptive value, but the most important role that is played by the biological diversity components. We cannot imagine life without nutrient recycle. Earth will be a filth. It will be filled with garbage and all that if the biological diversity components, particularly the microbes, would not have been there, and this important nutrient cycling may not be there. We cannot expect life. Nitrogen fixation, water cycling, so many different types of ecosystem values, the food chain, the food bank, web, all that energy movement within an ecosystem. So this is the kind of important service which is provided by the components of biological diversity. So with this background, let's move on to the idea of biodiversity. If you look at very broad evaluation in terms of global biodiversity, we have got roughly more than 68,000 species of vertebrates, more than 130,000 species of animals, invertebrate animals, and about 310,000, more than that, species of plants, 52,000 species of fungi and protistans, and currently about 1 lakh 7 this 1 crore 7 1 lakh 73 17 lakh 36,000 species they have been described so far, and they include only 15% of the described species as far as the biodiversity component is concerned. So that is what sort of this condition is going on. It's present. It is available with terms with reference to the biodiversity components. And about of this total biodiversity, 50 to 80% of the biodiversity that is exclusively confined to the rainforest, particularly the tropical rainforests, which are called as the lungs of this earth. And about 125,000 flowering plant species, they are exclusively reported from the tropical forests. Nearly 70% of the world's flowering plants, they are present in 17 countries, and those 17 countries are designated as mega diversity centers. And India is, of course, one of those 17 mega diversity centers. The marine biodiversity is still a component which is unexplored or underexplored. The possibilities are huge in this case as far as the marine biodiversity is concerned. And even still, if you look at the literature, if you look at the publications, many species, they are identified on daily basis. Daily, you are getting some report of some new taxon. So this is an area with lot of potential. This is an area that must be explored, evaluated, and must be taken care of to take it to the newer heights. Now, associated with since we have studied about the global biodiversity, whenever we study global biodiversity, there comes a point, there comes a word, biodiversity hotspot. So this is a very common term associated with the biodiversity. Biodiversity hotspot is basically a biogeographic region with a significant reservoir of biodiversity. And importantly, that component or reservoir of biodiversity is under threat from humans. High species richness is there, as well as they have high degree of endemism. So such regions which have very significant reservoir of biodiversity, facing significant threat, plus have a high species richness and high degree of endemism, such regions are designated as biodiversity hotspots. And this term was proposed by Norman Mayers in the year way back in 1988, when he published this book, Hotspots, Earth's Biologically Richest and Most Endangered Terrestrial Ecoregions. And that is initially on the basis of evaluation, 25 hotspots, they were recognized. Now, these hotspots, they are evaluated on the basis of two important criteria. The first criteria is that at least 0.5% or 1,500 species of vascular plants, they are endemic to that region. Secondly, the region has lost at least 70% of its primary vegetation. That tells the sort of pressure which is there on that region's vegetation. When these components are satisfied, a region can be declared as a biodiversity hotspot. And around the world, we have 36 regions that qualify this definition, and they have been declared as biodiversity hotspots. These biodiversity hotspots, they support nearly 60% of world's plant diversity, bird, mammal, reptile, and amphibian species. But they are threatened by the human activities. There must be some measures that should be planned, proposed, and executed for protecting biodiversity in these areas. So that concept is called as biodiversity hotspot. This is the list of those 36 biodiversity hotspots. 5 of them, they fall in South America. Another 5, they fall in North and Central America. Another 8, they are in Africa. 4 in Europe and Central Asia. And rest of them, they are present in Southeast Asia and Asia Pacific region. And if you look at Indian perspective, we have a portion of India under Himalaya as biodiversity hotspot, Indo-Burma, Western Ghats and Sri Lanka, and this Sunda land. So these 4 biodiversity hotspots, they have some portion of India being catered as a biodiversity hotspot. So we will quickly go through. This is a graphical representation of the location of these biodiversity hotspots, how they are spread over different parts of the world. You can see how elaborately these locations, they have been evaluated and they have been taken up for fulfilling the criteria of biodiversity hotspots. Let's move on from global biodiversity to the Indian scenario. India is a mega diversity nation, and it is one of those 17 mega diversity countries which are recognized. We have 2.4% of world's land area, and as much as 7 to 8% of all the recorded species, they are present in India. We are 10th among the plant-rich countries, 11th in number of endemic species of higher vertebrates, 6th in terms of centers of diversity. So that is the kind of richness which is associated with India. Now we have got about 21.05% of the geographical area under forest cover, which is of course less than what we refer to as 33% for sustainable development. Now there are about 45,000 species of plants and 91,000 species of animals reported from India. We have even lichen species, we have to the tune of 2,300 species of lichens, very, very important group, exclusively reported from Indian area. Over 200 diatom species, 90 dinoflagellates, 844 marine algae, and 39 mangrove species that also add to the biodiversity richness of marine floral diversity of India. And about 4,000, more than 4,000 species of flowering plants, they are endemic to India, which belong to 141 genera and as many as 47 families. That is the biodiversity richness of this great nation. We are 10th in terms of bird species, 5th reptile species, and 7th in terms of amphibian species diversity. If you look at the agriculture, we are primarily an agriculture-based country. And on the basis of agricultural and climatic conditions, India can be divided into 15 agroclimatic zones. And in these agroclimatic zones, different types of edible species, they have originated, they have been domesticated, and they are serving the purpose of food. We have got about 811 cultivated plants and 902 wild relatives of these cultivated plants reported from India. Not even plants, even animals, we have a rich and vast repository of farm animals. As many as 34 different breeds of cattle, buffaloes, goats, sheep, and chicken, they are reported from India. Even the fish diversity is tremendous. More than 3,000 fish species, they are reported from India, and they constitute about 9.4% of the known fish species of the world. India is the center of origin of near 5,000 species of flowering plants, 166 species of cropping plants, and 320 species of wild relatives of cultivated crops. More than 340 species of corals, which Dr. Ira was just talking about, more than 340 species of corals, they are reported from India. Besides this, we have a rich diversity of mollusks, crustaceans, polychaetes, corals, etc. And in addition to terrestrial and aquatic biodiversity, we have 93 major wetlands recognized. Wetland is a very, very important type of ecosystem which gives us transition from terrestrial to aquatic ecosystems. That is a very, very important ecological region. Now we were talking about endemism. If you look at this picture, tells us a broad idea about the endemism. About 1/3 of plant species, more than half amphibians, 12% mammals, 4.5% birds, and nearly 46% reptiles. They are endemic to India. That is what is the beauty of this country. That is what adds to the biodiversity richness of India. Now, on the basis of biogeographical criteria, India has been divided into different zones. Some people, they have divided India into 10, 11, or 12 biogeographical regions. If you look at the most accepted classification, which is modified form of Panvar's classification, India can be mainly divided into 12 biogeographical regions. These 12 biogeographical regions, they are unique in their environmental climatic conditions. They are unique with reference to their biodiversity components. So climate, ecology, coupled with biodiversity, on these three bases, we can divide India into 12 different biogeographical regions. Each region is very, very unique in terms of climate and diversity. Now here I'll take up only the 4 major regions which fall under the category of biodiversity hotspots. Let's take first the case of Himalaya, which is the home to world's highest mountains, including Mount Everest. Himalaya has one unique characteristic feature. Its mountains, they rise very abruptly. And because of this abrupt rising, there is an abrupt change in the climatic conditions. And that results in diversity of ecosystems. Huge range of ecosystems, different types of ecosystems, they do prevail in the Himalaya. They range from the alluvial grasslands and subtropical broadleaf forests to the alpine meadows beyond tree line. So you get all these variations within the Himalayan region. Vascular plants, they are recorded at more than 6,000 meters. Even at 6,000 meters of altitude, vascular plants, they have been reported. They have been studied. That adds to the diversity. Himalaya is the home to numerous large birds and mammals, including vultures, tigers, elephants, rhinos, and wild water buffaloes. So many different types of animals, they have been reported from the Himalayan region. And if you look at this Himalayan region, it is stretching in the form of an arc over 3,000 kilometers in length, from northern Pakistan through Nepal, Bhutan, and northwestern and northeastern parts of India. That is the zone which is covered by this Himalayan region. Now this Himalayan region, it covers nearly 7,50,000 square kilometer of areas. And this Himalaya is basically or broadly divided into 2 parts: Eastern Himalaya, which contains parts of Nepal, Bhutan, and northeastern Indian states of West Bengal, Sikkim, Assam, and Arunachal Pradesh, besides some southeastern portion of Tibet and northern Myanmar. The Western Himalaya, which includes, of course, the areas which fall in Kumaon Garhwal region, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Northwest Kashmir, and some part of northern Pakistan. That is what Himalaya includes. This is how you can have a look. And you can see the beautiful landscapes which are because of biodiversity components. And all this, they are inhabited by different types of floral and faunal constituents. If you look at the diversity, if we only talk about any plant species, 31% of the plant species are endemic to Himalaya. 4% mammals, nearly 27% of reptiles, and 40% of amphibians, they are endemic to Himalayan region. At the same time, if you compare it in terms of degradation, The original area was nearly 7,41,000 kilometers square. And now the portion which remains is only 1,85,427 kilometers square. You can imagine how much has been lost over the years. More than 3,000 endemic plant species they are there. 8 species are endemic threatened bird species. 4 are threatened mammals. 4 are amphibians. And human population density is about 123 persons per kilometer square. Of the 1,85,000 square kilometers, 1,12,000 square kilometer of area falls under the category of protected area. So these are the vital signs which have declared this Himalaya as the biodiversity hotspot. The vegetation is very rich and diverse. You have spectacular floristic animals, floristic components, tallest trees, tree ferns, orchids, primulas, blue poppies. So many botanical curiosities and rare species you can come across in these Himalayan regions. Lower reaches, they form a sanctuary of the ancient flora, which is very, very important for studying phylogenetic relationships. And this area was called as Cradle of Flowering Plants by Takhtajan in 1969. The area has very conducive conditions for tree growth, and we have 4 major types of vegetation: the tropical, subtropical, temperate, and subalpine type of vegetations. The second region, which contains Indian territory that falls in the hotspot category, is Western Ghats and Sri Lanka. So this portion, this particular portion along the western coast, this is the Western Ghat. And same sort of elements are also present in Sri Lanka. So these Western Ghats, they lie in the southwestern India. They include the highlands of southwestern Sri Lanka also. So these two areas, they are separated by 400 kilometers, but they have very similar geology, climate, and evolutionary history, which make them to resemble a lot among themselves. Western Ghats of this, that is a narrow stretch from hills of Tapti River in north to Kanyakumari in south along the western coast. They extend about 1,500 kilometers in their length and include the states of Maharashtra, Kerala, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu. There is abrupt increase in the height up to 2,900 meters in the dissected plateau region, and there is an abrupt descending down to a height of 500 meters. So from 500 meter to 2,900 meter, that is the elevation range which one comes across in Western Ghats. So it has about 17,000 square kilometer strip of the forests. Some of these areas, they still have the intact original floristic composition. This area receives very heavy rainfall, 5,000 to 6,000 millimeter of rainfall per annum. And 20% of the forests, they are in the category of evergreen and semi-evergreen species, type of the vegetation. Half of the plants, they are endemic. More than 60% of amphibians are endemic, and more than half of the lizards, 50% of the lizards, they are endemic to Western Ghats. So this is what we have. So 55% of plants being endemic, 65% reptiles, and about 72.8% of freshwater fishes and 73% of amphibians. They are reported only from Western Ghats. And look at the threat from nearly 1,90,000 square kilometer, only 40,611 square kilometer is area left with this biodiversity hotspot. So you can see how much of pressure is there. So this about 10 species of birds, they are endemic and threatened. 14 of mammals, they are endemic and threatened. 87 amphibians, and this is very alarming condition. 20 species, they have been extinct from this zone. And human population density is 261 people per square kilometer. So that tells the whole story of the human intervention in biodiversity hotspots. The third is Indo-Burman region, which includes the area from east of river Ganges to the Brahmaputra lowland. If you look at the territory, it includes eastern Bangladesh, northeastern India, and other parts of other adjoining countries. So Indian states of Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, Meghalaya, Nagaland, South Assam, and Andaman Islands, they are included in this. Species diversity, half of the plants, they are endemic, nearly 17% mammals, 39% reptiles, 53.8% amphibians, and 43.8% of the freshwater fishes, they are endemic to Indo-Burma region. About half of the area is destroyed, from 2,37,000 that has reached to 1,18,000. And it has got one species that has become extinct recently, a huge area that is under protected area category. So that is what the vital signs associated with Indo-Burma region. Then we have Sundaland. Sundaland is the region which includes the western half of Indo-Malayan archipelago. It is an arc of about 17,000 equatorial islands. So those islands, they form this Sundaland. It is the richest hotspot of Earth. You get maximum diversity in this. And it is dominated by two largest islands of the world. One is Borneo, other is Sumatra. More than 1 million years ago, it was supposed that this was connected to the mainland Asia. And it also includes the small portion of southern Thailand, Singapore, Brunei, western half of Indonesia, and Nicobar Islands of India. They are included in this biodiversity hotspot. In this area, we have lowland rainforests. These rainforests, they are dominated by the large-sized trees of family Dipterocarpaceae. Besides this, we have sandy and rocky coastlines which harbor the beech forests. Coral reefs are also there in this region. And higher elevations, they have typical boast mountain type of the forest, the very thick growth of the mosses. It is again having 60% of the endemic plants, 45% mammals, 53% reptiles, and nearly 80% of the amphibians are huge area under threat, and roughly 4 species, they have become extinct in the last few years. So that is the pressure on this. So with this, let's move on to the third part of our lecture, that there are some threats which are faced by biodiversity. Some natural causes, of course, are there. Narrow geographical area is one such threat, low population, low breeding rate, and natural disasters. But more important are the man-made or anthropogenic causes. We will take them quickly one by one. Natural causes, I think they are not so significant in the modern context as compared to the man. Habitat loss, this is the most pervasive threat to the biodiversity components. 89% of the birds, 83% of the mammals, and 91% of all threatened plants, they have been threatened because of loss of habitat. Why this loss of habitat is happening? This is because of increase in human population and increasing demand for natural resources. Because of this forest cutting scenes are very common. We need to expand our inhabitations. We need to expand roads. We need to expand agriculture, so many other things. And for all this, the pressure is always on the forests. So that is happening, and it leads to the loss of habitat. to the grazing land. Industries, roads and cities, they are coming up very fastly. And habitat loss leads to the formation of small isolated scattered populations which form habitat patches. And that further leads to some serious problems. And whenever you have these small populations, they are vulnerable to inbreeding. There will be inbreeding depression that will be there. And it can lead to loss of gene pool, high infant mortality, and susceptibility to the environmental changes, diseases, and this can even may lead to the extinction of species. Habitat loss is the primary factor responsible for loss of biodiversity. Another is habitat fragmentation. The term clears itself. It is the process when a large continuous area of habitat is reduced in area and is divided into smaller patches called fragments. So when you have this type of habitat fragment creation, that will limit a species for dispersal and colonization. The dispersal will be limited, the colonization will be limited, and when these two things are limited, it will lead to the disappearance or extinction of the species. Overexploitation, that is another man-made cause. If you keep on exploiting an individual, you will put in a lot of pressure. And when that pressure is there, eventually the population will decrease. And that decrease in population will lead to the extinction of species. Now, each individual is having a maximum sustainable yield, which is the greatest amount of resources that can be harvested each year and replaced by natural growth. If we go beyond maximum sustainable yield, we will put a species to threat of extinction. So whenever a species has to be exploited, it has to be planned. It has to be taken up in a very systematic and scientific way. Otherwise, it will put up a lot of pressure on that particular species. So overexploitation is another aspect. Poaching. We have a huge flourishing illegal trade of skin, tusk, hair, horn, so many other animal parts. And scenes like this are commonly appearing. These pictures are very commonly appearing in different newspapers on daily basis. We have a huge international market in Tibet and China for this particular aspect. So the cost is very less, but the impact is huge in this case. When you intrude into the territory of animals, when you have spoiled their habitat, what will be the option left with? These scenes are very common. You will see the animals entering into the human territory, and that leads to man-animal conflict, loss of life on both the sides. So that needs to be studied. In 2009, the IISc, this Chennai, that they had this beautiful project of mapping man-animal conflict hotspots. That provides how the things they have developed, what are the basic causes behind all this. Then we have pollution. Of course, that is one such important aspect. Oil spills. The world is crazy for fossil fuels. We have the entire economy of the world is now driven by this petroleum and petroleum-based products. Huge transportation is there, and during that transportation, these oil spills are posing a serious threat to the marine life. Biomagnification, which is the accumulation of the toxic substances at different levels. DDT is one such example, and this is leading to the biomagnification. Then the release of nutrients into these water bodies because of the leaching from agricultural fields, leading to algal blooms. We have plastic accumulation, noise, heat, which are the other factors. It is really disheartening when we see such pictures, but that's the reality. Oil spills, algal blooms, plastics, garbage, solid waste, what all this is creating is threat to the life. We must take care of this. Exotic species, another threat to the indigenous flora. Sometimes some plants, some animals, they attract human beings. They are introduced in an area where such organisms do not occur naturally. When you introduce them, you give them new conditions where their natural parasites may be absent. Such individuals will grow like anything, and they can threaten the indigenous or original elements. Parthenium is one such example. Eucalyptus, Australian acacia, this lantana, these are so voraciously growing in different parts of the country that original or actual floristic elements, they are under threat. Global warming, I will not go into the details. The earlier lecture has been beautifully, it has conveyed how the global warming and climate change that is threatening different forms of life. Coral bleaching, Dr. Ira was just talking about. Now, a healthy coral is a beautiful symbiotic association between a coral, a coelenterate, and an alga. This beautiful combination provides a spectacular color to the corals. When water body is stressed due to any reason, which can be due to change in oceanic temperature, increased temperature, addition of surface runoff and pollution, overexposure to sunlight, extreme low tides. Under these four conditions, the corals, they feel the stress. When the corals feel the stress, the algal partner is degenerated. And when the algal partner is degenerated, the corals will lose its symbiotic association and it will lose its natural color, will become white. And this phenomenon is called as coral bleaching. There are so many examples. You can see healthy and bleached corals, how they are appearing because of the human intervention. Even 90% mortality at some locations has been observed. So that is another aspect. Now, for all this threat assessment, there are certain agencies. For example, one of them is IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, which was founded way back in 1948. One of the most important organizations which evaluates the species over the years. And it releases its red data book, which gives an idea about the threatened species. You have extinct species, extinct and wild, critically endangered, vulnerable. All these, they are included in the red data list. Then we have nearly threatened, rare, and not evaluated. So there is a span of 10 years. In that 10 years, a species is being evaluated. Its individuals are counted, and on that basis, the category is assigned. Some of the endangered species of India, they have also been reported, listed. Some of the extinct species, one of them is Asiatic cheetah, which is extinct in India since 1940. Probably one of the fastest animal. Pink-headed duck, which was of the size of domestic duck, and it was a very shy and secretive bird and was rarely seen in Odisha, Bihar, Bengal, Assam, and Manipur. Even it was also reported from Punjab, Uttarakhand, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, but now it is probably extinct. The last record was in 1935 from Darbhanga in Bihar. Some of the endangered flora, Polygala irregularis, Lotus corniculatus, and Amantotexus assamica, Silotum nudum. These are some of the threatened species. You can see Polygala, Xylotum nudum, Amantotexus assamica, Actinodaphne lawsonii, Chlorophytum tuberosum, Chlorophytum malabaricum, Acacia planiformis, even Diospyros salibica is a threatened plant species. Nymphia tetragona, Pterospermum reticulatum, Seripogia odorata, all these, they are in the category of threatened species. Critically endangered, they include the western flytrap Seripogia fantastica, Dazzle's ferreria, which is Ferreria indica. It is an endangered species, a rare endangered endemic plant, which is present in hills around Pune district. Fauna is also endangered. Tiger is one of the endangered species. Asiatic lion, of course, Asian elephant, and this poor guy, which we really do not bother, the Indian wild ass. It is also an endangered species. Only 3,900 individuals were available in 2004. The data is old, but it is in the category of endangered species. Lion-tailed macaque, beautiful creature of the nature, which was originally known to occur in Western Ghats. But today we have less than 2,500 mature individuals surviving because of human intervention. We need to conserve biodiversity. There are in situ methods where in nature we can have a framework of protected areas. Ex situ, we can keep those individuals in certain specific conditions, and that can help to protect the conserve the biodiversity. In situ conservation, that is the on-site conservation, we have a network of protected areas in the form of national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, Ramsar sites, World Heritage Center sites, etc. In India, we have 104 national parks, nearly 551 sanctuaries, 18 biosphere reserves, 214 conservation reserves and community reserves, 39 tiger reserves, and 32 elephant reserves. All these reserves, they are the protected areas. We have Kanha National Park, which is one of the important reserves in Madhya Pradesh. These are some of the important national parks where care is being taken of this biodiversity. This is how the network is spread over throughout the country from north to south, from east to west throughout India. Sanctuaries are also there. We have Chilka Lake Wildlife Sanctuary, which is there in southwest of Puri in Odisha. Black buck, hyenas, spotted deers, aquatic animals, they are there. Huge network of this wildlife sanctuaries. Biosphere Reserve, the concept was started in 1975 as a part of UNESCO program Man and Biosphere. A biosphere has these three zones: the core zone, where no human activity is allowed, the buffer zone, in which tourism activities allowed, and the transition zone, where human inhabitation is allowed. So we have these biosphere reserves. Similarly, for wetlands, we have Ramsar sites. And in India, we have got about these 37 Ramsar sites recognized. This is how the Ramsar sites, they are distributed throughout different parts of India. Some specialized projects, for example, Project Tiger was started in 1973 with 9 tiger reserves, and there are total 18 reserves in 13 states. We have a crocodile breeding project started in 1975 to conserve the endangered species of crocodiles. We have lesser cat project started in 1976 with an aim to conserve 4 species of small cats. Manipur Bro Antlered Deer Project, Project Elephant, started in 1991 to protect Asiatic elephant. Project Rhino started in Kaziranga Wildlife Sanctuary in 1987. Project Hangul started in Kashmir Valley to save the Kashmir stag, which is endangered. Similarly, Himalayan Musk Deer Project. So all these they have added to the in situ mode of conservation. At the same time, we have off-site conservation through ex situ measures. There is setting up of zoological parks, huge number, about 72 zoological parks. They have been set up in different parts of the country to protect and breed these wild animals. Botanic gardens are of course there, where rare, endangered, economically important plants they are preserved. And there are about 1,600 botanical gardens throughout the world, which receive about 150 million visitors throughout the year. In India, there are about 140 botanical gardens, and 75 are enlisted in BSI, that is Botanical Survey of India. Besides this, we can have creation of seed banks, gene banks. We have National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources. We have National Bureau of Animal Genetic Resources. We have National Bureau of Agriculturally Important Microorganisms, agriculturally important insect species, fish genetic resources. All these are the ways of ex situ conservation of biological diversity. These are some of the international efforts. CBD is proposed, Cartagena Protocol is proposed, which all aim to protect, preserve, and propagate the components of biodiversity. All these aspects, all these conventions, their aim is to work for the protection of biodiversity components. So I wish to end up here. We need to have an environment where an animal and a plant can exist in harmony. If that environment is provided, biodiversity is safe. If there is any threat, any overexploitation, it can lead to the imbalance, which will not be in favor of nature and natural resources. So with this, I will end up. Thank you very much for your patience. And at the same time, I'm also extremely thankful to Dr. Halim Khan for giving me this opportunity to interact with the fellow colleagues and students from Telangana. Any questions, any queries? That will be a pleasure to answer.
Sir, it was a wonderful talk. You have given such a beautiful presentation, covering not only the plants but also the animal forms also you have covered. And though we are the part of Mega Biodiversity Center, there are so many hurdles. Increase in population is one of the beautiful point what you have told, and also when you say changes in climate change, which is a current when you say issue. Maybe the current issue, current climate change is also one of the reason. Though there are anthropogenic activities, there are human activities which are causing when you say many of the species to lose from the ecosystem or environment. But really, you have also not only blamed the thing, but also you have supported that there are a number of conservation strategies are also going on, and it is a time to alarm the all generations, not one particular generation, but all the specific age group people should think about conserving not only plants but also animals, but also insects, but all means every living form, each and every living form, as you well said that each and every living form is there and they have their own role in the ecosystem. If not, what we are seeing right now, the different kind of viral infections which are coming and creating a big death toll in developed countries, though it was shocking that death toll is very high in number in the very superpower type of countries also. So maybe our own Uttarakhand issue is also one of the issue. What is a big activity done by ourselves? Our own hands have spoiled our beautiful land. We used to say that there is a golden bird in our India. After Britishers have come, we say that the golden bird disappeared. Really, not only the golden bird disappeared, but also we have spoiled the entire system, entire ecosystem. Though people say that industrialization is one of the main major cause for making the change. Deforestation is also one of the change, and recent times we can see that government is alarming very much, and the different officials in their own portfolios, they are trying a lot to bring back the things, but what we did is a big loss, and to fulfill that big loss it takes much more time, it seems, or maybe it need some more evolutionary the kind of I would say races to come back, because the existing races couldn't survive in the present scenario, and that when you say because of the temperature change or because of the various changes in the climate, maybe those species couldn't survive and couldn't fit that Darwin's concept, survival of fittest, maybe one of the reason, maybe, but we should not think that survival of fittest is one part, but other part is also very important, that we are also doing our own role, like plastic pollution or increase xenobiotics recalcitrants into the atmosphere. So many points you have beautifully covered. Your complete presentation was a lot of information you have made to make the complete all our participants and our students, especially our students are listening on LCD projector in the department, and also one of the government college, PG college of Nizamabad, also students are attending. So more than 50 to 60 students are listening in the seminar hall. So that is why Zoom was not, I mean, it's a full with the people. So anyhow, being from your busy schedule, you have given a time. Really, sir, I express my deep sense of gratitude towards the uh, entire department of botany, Telangana University. And I think one madam is asking some question.
Please, yes.
Sunika ma'am, can you ask the question? Whether you, if you want to ask something, ma'am, you can speak now. You are made unmute. Hello. Hello. Ma'am, if you want, you can speak. Anyhow, we have reached to the lunch time, and out of your busy schedule, it was very wonderful. So in mycological society meeting also, your presentation was wonderful, and lot of work you have did in the, I mean to say, field of mycology, and you have shown your teacher also, Professor Singh sir also. So I was very much amused, and hope that your YouTube channel will persist that as all presentations, so that sometime we will be playing in our department, though it may not be live, but still we'll be playing your presentations. Lot of things are there, entire mycology, and that too Indian scenario is more important. In the Indian scenario, you have shown the mycology. From that time, I was so amused that I should call Singh sir for the talk. So from north to south, you have traveled in a short distance. So it was wonderful of your talk, sir, and I express my deep sense of gratitude for your beautiful presentation. So really, biodiversity is the most important issue which need to be handled very carefully. So hope that this message will give our participants and entire people who are being on the live stream of YouTube that environment is our property. We need to protect it. We should shoulder the responsibility for it. Thank you so much, sir. With your permission, I would like to end the meeting now for all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khan. I'm extremely thankful to Dr. Khan and the entire team, and most importantly, the students for giving me this chance to interact. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So participants, please be with us on 8th. 8th will be the last day of our lecture series. And on 8th itself, we are going to share the feedback for certificate. So for certificate link, please attend on 8th. As usual, you will be getting your links onto your respective emails and the WhatsApp groups also. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you, Indra madam, for joining with us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Big thank you, ma'am. So we'll see you again back on Monday. Have a happy Sunday. Thank you.